Rakeo A. Vinson. I don't have a case number at this point. I believe here it's for a temporary bond. Is that correct, Mr. Gravely and Ms. Watson?
That's correct, Your Honor. We're asking for a bond hearing today, and I appear, Mike Gravely, the district attorney for the Kenosha County District Attorney's Office at this bond hearing.
That is my understanding is what we're doing, and Rakayo Vinson appears via Zoom and by attorney Christine Watson.
All right, thank you. Mr. Vinson, are you able to hear what's going on in this hearing at this point, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. Thank you very much. All right, then on behalf of the state, Mr. Gravely.
Your Honor, the state is requesting the court hold Mr. Vinson on a $4 million cash bond today. I'm asking that the court give us 48 additional hours so we can have a complaint and do a formal initial appearance this coming Wednesday at the 1 o'clock appearances. The charges being contemplated by law enforcement and that they believe they have probable cause for in this situation are multiple murder cases. The victims in those homicide cases are at this point believed to be Kevin Donaldson, Cedric Gaston, and Atkeem, A-T-K-E-E-M, Stevenson. Those three individuals all were deceased after suffering gunshot wounds at the Summers House Tavern in the very right after midnight on April 18th of 2021. There were also three individuals injured, and I anticipate that at least at this point, that what is considered are attempted homicide charges regarding these injured and hospitalized individuals. Again, that is the result of gunshot wounds. And those individuals are Jordan Momani, M-O-M-A-N-I, Justin Haymond, H-A-Y-M-O-N-D, and Kevin Serratos, S-E-R-R-A-T-O-S. Your Honor, there's an enormous amount of video that is being reviewed from the tavern as well as the neighborhood. There is also, this was a packed tavern, literally almost so packed you could not move in this tavern at the time that the gunshots were fired. And so there are a huge number of witnesses and some difficulties in getting back to those witnesses, many of whom fled, obviously, but have been identified by the identification system as you enter the bar. So there's a lot of work still being done. I contemplate, as I said, 3 homicide charges and 3 attempted homicide charges. The evidence that I can discuss with the court at this moment is that Mr. Vinson was placed under arrest in the Mount Pleasant area. He was arrested because a person, I believe is a cousin of his, reported that Mr. Vinson had taken his car without permission. So Mr. Vinson was arrested in the context of that vehicle being taken from a person I believe to be his relative. When taken into custody, the proprietor of Summers House Tavern, where all the gunfire occurred, indicated that upon review of the video with law enforcement, that he believed the person who had fired the shots was a person he had had significant interaction with in the bar just a few minutes earlier. And that is confirmed on video. So what is apparent on video and what is then outlined by the proprietor at the tavern is that Mr. Vinson had been involved in a bumping in the tavern. Again, this was really a shoulder-to-shoulder situation, that had resulted in a fight occurring where Mr. Vinson had certainly been punched in a fight in the tavern. Some people were kicked out of the tavern by tavern staff. Mr. Vinson was taken by the proprietor to a separate area of the tavern where a conversation was had with him. The proprietor had an ongoing conversation with him that's memorialized on the video where he reports he is calming Mr. Vinson down and trying to get Mr. Vinson to let bygones be bygones. Right after the proprietor leaves Mr. Vinson, you can see the defendant Vinson then puts his hoodie up and proceeds over just a few feet to where the group that remains. Now, remember, individuals have been kicked out of the bar, but the individuals who remain, who had been seated with the individuals who have been kicked out of the bar, are located. And immediately after Mr. Vinson arrives at that location, video shows gunfire occurring. Mr. Vinson, again, per the proprietor, is then the individual on video who leaps over the terrace area, leaps into the driveway of the location. Judge, right at the, or Commissioner, right at the location where that jump occurs, there's a gap in the fencing between the fence and the patio area. That's a enclosed gap. It's not exposed to the driveway. And in that location is found a single wallet. In that wallet, and that wallet belongs to Mr. Vinson, based on the materials within that wallet. That is Mr. Mr. Vinson, the defendant who is arrested here. That's his wallet, located exactly where that jump gap occurred. At that point, the defendant proceeds into the parking lot, and you can see him on the video take a stance looking back as if he anticipates people will either follow him or be shooting towards him. He then crosses Sheridan Road, at which point additional gunfire occurs. And then that is also memorialized on video, although it is much more difficult to determine based on the video that law enforcement has seen thus far. They are going through video from the neighborhood as well, and that may shed more light on exactly what the origin of the gunfire is that happens across Sheridan Road. But the individuals that I just discussed with the court, who are either homicide victims or are injured, appear to have sustained their injuries based on our current investigation within that tavern, in that patio area. It is two distinct groups, Your Honor. So the individuals who are injured do not appear to have any particular connection to the individuals who are the homicide suspects. They are simply on the patio at the same time, but appear to be unrelated in this case. When Mr. Vinson, the defendant, is interviewed by law enforcement, some of the things he denied having been present at the tavern for multiple hours. Ultimately, when confronted with some video and the fact that his ID is present there, it's my understanding that he then admitted he was present at the tavern when this happened, admitted he was in the possession of a gun, admitted he was in a fight, and indicated when asked, well, are you the shooter, sort of questions, he indicated, and the quote I have is, I blacked out and shit went down. He took pains to say that no one had been targeted, and indicated that the weapon would never be found. And in fact, at this point, the weapon discharged by the defendant per these allegations has not been detected. So from the state's perspective, the fact that his ID is found at the location, that there are some significant admissions, that the proprietor of the location, when reviewing the video and talking about interactions he had literally minutes, maybe even seconds before the shooting, and he's able to make a firm ID because of his ongoing interactions. I think the strength of this case is extremely high. Obviously, it's almost impossible, Your Honor, to overemphasize the grave damage to this community and the absolute tragedy of the loss of life in this circumstance. Kenosha has only had 3 individuals die on the same night at the same person's hands, maybe once or twice in the entire history of this county. And I hope that puts this case in context in terms of the serious nature of the allegations that we are talking about today. Again, the current indication is that this was literally over nothing. This was literally over a very minor dispute that happens in a busy bar across this country every night that people are out celebrating or socializing, and we get to a point where gunfire ends 3 lives and places 3 other persons in some peril. This is as public a location as there was at 12:42 a.m. in Kenosha County. It's a busy street, as the court knows. It's aggravated by additional gunfire being exchanged across that street, and that is a highly residential neighborhood, as I'm sure the court knows, across the street. Then we certainly know that the defendant fled, went to another county, and was apprehended in the context of a report by a relative that he had taken a car without permission. Your Honor, further aggravating the circumstances of this case are what I have so far been able to piece together about the background of the defendant. It appears to me that this is the fourth time he's been before law enforcement. He's been arrested by law enforcement for illegal possession of a weapon in the last 10 years. That began in 2011, where he had a Racine arrest, and a juvenile case was pursued for prohibited possession of a firearm based on his age. So that was 2011. It appears from the teletype that I am reviewing that in Kansas City, Missouri, in 2016, he was convicted of illegal use of a weapon, placed on 4 years probation, which he did complete in 2018. So that 4-year probation, it appears, lasted 2 years. But that, again, is an illegal weapons offense, which in Missouri is a felony. There isn't a felony equivalent in Wisconsin, but that would be a felony in Missouri. In Racine in 2018, so this is the third time he's been before courts for illegal weapons possession. He is again convicted of carrying a concealed weapon. That weapon is a firearm as a repeater in Racine County in 2018. So this is the fourth time, Your Honor, as I said, that he's been under arrest, and the horrific pattern is finalized by the homicide allegations that are here today. So based on that prior record of weapon possession illegally that is now chronic and extends over 10 years, as well as the seriousness of these allegations, I do ask for the $4 million cash bond. I ask for no contact with the families of the deceased or those individuals who I have listed to the court who are still injured in this case. I ask for no weapons and ask the court to set an initial appearance on Wednesday.
All right, I assume no contact with Summers House as well?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Watson?
Thank you. Well, as we're all aware, the defense is always at a pretty significant disadvantage when we're talking about a bond-only proceeding. There's nothing that I've been able to review in writing ahead of time, and then we only hear the limited facts that the state then puts forward in order to justify what's usually a very significant bond request when we're talking about a homicide allegation. But even in just listening to the facts that are presented, probably in the light most favorable to the state from making this request, I hear issues with ID. I don't think that that's necessarily the ironclad identification that I don't agree with that analysis necessarily. Certainly self-defense. It sounds like there's at some point, some dispute about origins of gunfire, potentially multiple people firing weapons at this location. And so it's certainly not, even from listening to those facts as laid out by the state just on the record, it doesn't seem as clear cut as Mr. Gravely made the argument for. And again, that's just trying to analyze facts as they're being laid out in this hearing without the benefit of being able to review anything in depth. I heard a lot of as the investigation stands now, and I recognize that it is a dynamic and ongoing situation, but certainly it seems, even based on what we know so far, that there are going to be issues with this case. Mr. Vinson is 24 years old. He is a Racine resident. His entire family lives here in Racine. Obviously, that's just a few short miles from Kenosha. We're not talking about state lines or across this state even. He is a high school graduate. He had been working as a warehouse machine operator. I didn't hear anything about a history of missed court dates in that prior record. Again, even in just the facts that are laid out, I know I heard Mr. Vinson had been punched, so it wasn't just a bump or something like that. Mr. Vinson certainly has injuries as he comes before the court today. So I think there's a lot more to this situation than just what has been laid out. And certainly there seem to be there will be some issues going forward with this case. We would just ask that the court set a reasonable bond, and Wednesday would be fine for the initial appearance.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Watson. Well, first off, this is nothing short of a tragedy that affects many, many lives, puts many lives in danger. I understand these are allegations, but they're incredibly serious allegations. We have 4 individuals that are the victims of gun violence, and then which resulted in their deaths. 3 others are injured as a result. an entire neighborhood is put at great risk with gunfire. Those bullets don't just dematerialize after they miss whatever target they were originally aimed at. They hit everything in the area. They continue at great peril to anyone in the area. And that also is a very, very big tragedy here. But nothing pales with the loss of life. That's just incredible and sad, I'm sure, for the families and for this entire community. Now, that having been said, I am aware these are allegations, but as I said, these are incredibly serious allegations, with the district attorney, Mr. Gravely, outlining the likelihood of 3 separate first-degree intentional homicide charges being brought, with attempted homicide charges being brought with respect to the 3 victims. And I imagine additional charges as well that are going to be likely very serious. All of that leads to, in this case, the exposure is incredibly significant. Potential for life imprisonment or decades of incarceration, again, if conviction occurs. And you couple that with Mr. Vinson's record here of issues involving firearms, illegal firearms or illegal possession of firearms. All of that, in this court's opinion, leads to the point where the evidence at this point does appear strong. And as such, this court believes a very significant cash bond is necessary, as this would make this defendant a flight risk with respect to the exposure and the issues involved in the strength of the case. Therefore, the court is going to impose a $4 million cash bond. Additional non-monetary conditions, Mr. Vinson, are as follows. You're to have no contact at any time, for any reason, through any means, at any location, and for any reason, again, with the families of Cedric Gaston, Kevin Donaldson, or Akeem Stevenson. You also may not have any contact under those same conditions, absolutely no contact at any forum, anytime, any location, for any reason, with Jordan, and then Momani, Justin Haymond, or Kevin Serratos. Further, you may not possess any firearms of any type, including any weapons of any type, including edged weapons, and you may not have any contact to be on the premises of the Summers house located in Summers, Wisconsin. If you are released, you must appear in court every time when required and not commit further crimes while out on bond. Do you understand all of those conditions, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, coming back here for an initial appearance on April 21st at 1 p.m. Thank you.